If you will all please rise for the pledge.
Got it?
Are we ready, Miss Lorraine?
We are.
Okay. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of
The state of New Mexico is the symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Sandoval, when you're ready, roll call, please.
Dr. Ashambo?
Here.
Mrs. Hunt Daly? Mr. Jaramillo?
Here.
Mr. Ortiz? Mrs. Lee?
Present. We do indeed have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda, and if so, what might those be? Mr. Widener?
President Lee, I do have a few slight changes. I would like to strike presentation A and action item A. I apologize. We had a little bit of confusion over the student handbook and the discipline handbook. And so I will bring that back to you at a future board meeting.
Right.
I also would, I have a recommendation from board member Hunt Daly, or a request. She has requested that we table presentation C until the August 20th board meeting, if you guys are okay with that.
All right. Anything further, board members? All right, so and C. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended, striking presentation A, which is the student handbook, action item A, which is consideration of approval for the student handbook, and tabling presentation item C until August 20th as requested by board member Hunt Daly.
I make the motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Dr. Archambault to approve the agenda as amended, striking item, presentation item A, action item A, and tabling item C in presentations until the August 20th meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Adoption of minutes for July 30th, 2024. Are there any amendments to the minutes? And if so, what?
The only crazy part of it was the beginning, and I think it looks like you got it.
Accurate? All right. Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation?
I recommend to approve the minutes from July 30th.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the July 30th board meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the minutes as presented for the July 30th, 2024 meeting. Any need for discussion, board members? All right, hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Recognitions, Mr. Widener.
Awesome. I am very excited to recognize some outstanding people. On June 22nd, 2024, we had a horrible flood that came into our community. I presented on this in our superintendent's report. 4 of our campuses were impacted by the rain, the heavy rain and the floodwater. And so tonight, it's my pleasure to recognize our maintenance team. They did a phenomenal job of helping us move furniture, they were working tractors, they were helping, the employees here at central office were stuck up here on the hill and they helped them get out and these were kind of the superheroes of the flood. And so it's my honor to recognize these outstanding folks. So I will call them up one at a time and present them with a certificate.
And they were soaking wet too, cause I was
They
there.
they were drenched, they worked for days. Our first is we had a student intern who was working in maintenance. We'd like to start with Derek Burks. Please. Olin Charlie. You come shake hands, Ron.
They see me every day.
Jojo's not here tonight. No Jojo. Leroy Chavez. Greg Gallegos. I like that shirt, Greg.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Greg.
Eduardo Gonzalez. Keziah Hawker. Congratulations, sir. Roger Jake. Matthew Jaramillo. Antonio Lopez. Cause you're worth it, sir. Leroy Martinez. Leo Sandoval. Patrick Sandoval.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chris Toseda. Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
And Ron Triplehorn.
Well, we gotta hold our things up like
Get in
that.
close.
Put it upside down.
Cooper, you were there too.
You got that.
I don't look good on that camera.
So was Mr.
But he was brand new.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Walter was there too.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for your hard work for the district. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for everything. It was fun. Thank you. We were contemplating it. Come around here and find us. Mr. Wagner.
Our next presentation is an exciting presentation. I have asked this parent to join us. She is a substitute teacher in one of our schools. She has her children that have gone to our schools. And She's here to share exciting news about her oldest son
I am.
and opportunities that he has as a that he earned as a student through Grant Cibola County Schools.
Yes, and first I wanted to say thank you guys all for letting me jump on your agenda. I'm gonna try and keep it short. Joel timed me, so I can do it in 3 minutes, but I got extended to 6. You guys have to understand it, so I'm gonna try and keep it short. I wanna highlight one of the CTE programs here at our own GHS, and that's gonna be Mr. Mariah's welding program. And before I start this off, Brandon actually texted me before I came to the meeting. He said, "Mom, please make sure that they know that this isn't a program that started overnight. This is a program that we have been feeding at GCCS that people do not realize for a long time." He said, "These are the boys that went back before me that have had me over for supper or have invited me in under their wing." And they are, sorry about that, I had to call it, I promise. Devin Wilson, Wesley Wilcox, Logan Simpson, and Bodie Nairmore. All of those kids came out of CCS, and they are out in the field making money right now. So I want to talk to you about Mr. Morrow's class. The things that I saw that were key for Brandon's success was he had specific reachable criteria. So going into these classes, Brandon knew right away when he came into high school that 4-year program was not going to be for him. It was not something he was interested in. I myself am that same way. It was not a path I was going to go. So we were looking for alternative pathways and didn't even know it. In this class, he had those specific reachable criteria that small steps at a time, he began to find confidence in his own domain. That was the first time in an educational setting that he came into the school every day and he knew like, yep, Joel's going into science, that's where his confidence. Brandon hit that welding class, put that hood down, and there was nobody that could touch him, even though he wasn't the best. He was a freshman and didn't know anything. He felt the confidence in that domain. Also in this class, they got instant feedback. So it's not like they're gonna go out and finish a whole thing. Step by step, they are learning that trade and they are perfecting it before they go on to the next step. So when they leave our program at Grants High School, they can go out and make money today. Not everybody's gonna go to college, not everybody's gonna go to a tech program. But they can make money if they stick through our programs. He has beginner all the way to advanced. So it doesn't matter what level you come into GHS, if you follow his program, he tells you, when you're done with me your senior year, you can walk out, you will be responsible, you will be respectful, and you will be ready to be employed. And you'll have the skills to do it. Sorry, I'm trying to keep on track. I have my notes here so I don't jabber. Brandon participated for 4 years in this welding program. In it, he also learned responsibility, safety, accountability, respect, the welding curriculum, of course, and that Mr. Morrow was gonna set a bar. And he was gonna set it high, and no matter what hit, it was not gonna waver. He was gonna make you successful. The first day of school, he tells them on their freshman year, this program is hard, but when you get through it, you're gonna be a successful individual. Brandon's first 9 weeks, many of you don't know because you only know his successes and you don't know his hardships. Mr. Mariah failed him his first 9 weeks, his very first 9 weeks his freshman year. We were smack dab in the middle of COVID and Brandon could not go in and charm the teacher and get that grade nudged up. Mr. Mariah held him accountable. But not only did he do that, before the grades posted, he did something different that GCCS does that makes the difference. He reached out to Brandon and said, you are going to fail this 9 weeks. You're going to do it because you did not have accountability. But we are gonna find a way to make you pass this semester. This is your wake-up call. He guided him into it and told him, this is not a failure. This is a wake-up call. That was the program we built here at GCCS, and I'm so proud of that part of it. Let's see, also with COVID, I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, I was not a successful parent. We did not have internet where I live. We had CenturyLink, which meant both boys couldn't browse at the same time. Not only that, we lived in a canyon, so although some people could get Verizon packs at where they lived, I couldn't get a Verizon pack where I could live. So after that first 9 weeks, Layton had to bring him in, and we had to really think outside the box and find a way to get Brandon to school and get him online. We were able to do that because, again, GCCS High School, Grants High School, made a way for that program to happen. I'm so thankful again for that. We brought him back, and guess what? The next semester, he made it happen. Of course, he had some credit recovery that I had to hang on to the next 2 years, plus his general ed education. This happens to so many of our students and they get discouraged. But let me tell you what happened. He went to welding every single day. When his other classmates were saying, you know what, I got behind during COVID, I'm gonna do GED. Brandon said, I'm not leaving the high school, I wanna go to welding. That is where I'm successful, that's my program. It kept him here, guys. It kept him in the program and away from that. And that's another step he was successful for. One thing I do wanna say is that the recovery over 2 years, a lot of that, I know that I mentioned it, had nothing to do with the school. That was a lot with us and with me as a parent being knowledgeable about it. Once I sat down and I had a one-on-one with the person in front of it, he was done in 6 weeks. It's a totally total program. I just wanted to put that in. Anyway, it was all worth it, balancing all of the general ed and everything, because he knew he wanted to well. He had that confidence in that domain, and sophomore year, we decided, okay, we need to start looking into programs. GHS also does something else. I don't know if all of you know this. Tech schools come into our sites and they talk to these kids. Tulsa Welding School came in his sophomore year, and they gave a presentation and told them, if you're good in this domain, and if you graduate high school, regardless of anything, we're gonna take you in and we're gonna make you a master of the skill. So that's something else that GHS brought to him. Then his senior year, coupled that in with that financial planning he got from Mrs. Patel, and he knew he had to have a 5-year plan. That combination set him up for success and building that plan to go to the program. Senior summer, I was scared. I was terrified. All I knew is he was going to tech school, and many of you have this stigma. He is gonna have interest rates through the roof, right? That's the loans they're gonna carry. There's no financial aid. I was terrified. Well, this is what me and my whole generation don't know. That is not the way tech schools are anymore. There are huge opportunities. Number one, financial aid is taken and you get FAFSA help in almost every tech school out there now. There are scholarship opportunities that we as a community, you guys as a board pushed for to make those local scholarships to where they can use them at a tech school. This is the first year that ever happened. Brandon received $2,000 of support that last year he wouldn't have got had we not modernized our ways, and we did. We made that opportunity. So then coupled with that came scholarship time. And unfortunately, like I said, Brandon always struggled in school. He didn't have that 2.5. He did graduate with 2.6. He wanted me to make sure you all knew that. That last 9 weeks, the highest GPA he ever had. Like we handled it. But he struggled. And so going into that, he did have to take out a loan. But it was a government loan. It's not the Sallie Mae loans that we think it is as parents. And we need to communicate that. It's a low interest government loan. And again, an opportunity. So I was really stressed out because I was terrified about debt. I had talked to Mrs. Lee. We were on a field trip together for our sons, and she thought about it overnight and probably stayed all night researching and found an opportunity for Brandon. And it was the most incredible thing ever, and it is the micro scholarship. This scholarship, I want everybody in GCCS to know about it. I want every teacher to know about it. I want every parent to know about it. This is a worth ethic scholarship. They do not look at your GPA. They are gonna call every boss, every tutor, every teacher you have. They are gonna interview them up and down the wall. It is an intense process. He had to also do an online video to create a piece of a pledge. It was very intense. But because we gave him the skills at GCCS, not only did he go for it and get the semifinals, he received an $8,500 scholarship, paying off his tech school. So his tech school is paid in full. It is possible. It is an opportunity for every kid at this school. But I also want to tell you that tech school is not for everybody. And the reality of it is, I know your guys' goal is to get everybody to the next step of education. But I want all of the parents to know and for you guys to realize, you guys fed another generation of things you don't understand. And this year, we're gonna retire 5 plumbers. Okay, 5 plumbers are gonna retire. You know how many we're gonna replace in our workforce? 2 of them. So I want you to look around at our community. I want you to look at our villages. I want you to look at our tribal lands. And you tell me, if we lose 5 plumbers this year, what will our community look like by next year? That goes for your electricians, that goes for your mechanics. When Brandon went to Oklahoma, because he came out of this program, 2 things happened that I want to tell you about. One, he went to go find a job, he had to weld in on site. This is right after he graduated high school, 3 weeks out. They pulled him in, they said, you know what, we're looking for a guy. They welded 10 kids that day, or 10 grown men that day. Nobody passed the weld test. Brandon came straight out of Sean Royale's class, welded in, and they offered him $22 an hour full-time with benefits right there on the spot. He could have gone, and that is an opportunity our kids need at this school. But, back that up, that's not what happened. He ended up going to Tulsa Welding School. Not only did he go to Tulsa Welding School, so did his fellow classmate Isaiah Grega. Both of them came out of this program. Going into tech school is an 18 weeks program. There's an opportunity for you to weld out what's called 101. This is a 5 weeks that everybody has to take, and it is also $6,000. If you pass this, it is another $6,000 off your tuition, and you accelerate your graduation date. Both of our graduates from GHS welded out of that 101 program. Both of them will be nationally certified, graduated in May, nationally certified to weld in November. So not only do they get that welding, all of that welding background in high school, they accelerated through class. And Isaiah and Brandon, I will be very honest with you, are pretty much welded out and just killing time. I mean, our program created a path for him to success. And again, I want to mention the financial literacy that he got with Ms. Patel, that really pushed that he needed to have that 5-year plan. And that's when we started thinking outside. And so I really, I know I go on and on, but I really want you guys to understand how thankful I am as a parent for the programs that were built. And not the, it did not just pop up, this has been here. All these boys have been successful in the program. And I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the extent you guys went to find scholarships, the way you changed our local scholarships last year. And the new CTE programs that I see pumping in, because not every kid wants to weld. I have another son that's all into the broadcasting. So all these programs, you guys, we are changing our community. Every time we graduate 10, only one's gonna come back here. So if we can get 60 of them gone and 6 of them to come back and fill those key areas in our counties, we're just helping them out. So thank you guys so much for your time. I'm sorry I go on and on, but thank you again. It's incredible. I'm so thankful. And please tell everybody there are opportunities out there. Those CTE programs, they'll take them all the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's an amazing testament to our schools. Of course. Sam,
Hey guys. He's amazing, right? Yes. He, like I said, it's so many facets. I mean, he has the principal that helped him in COVID, he has the welding teacher that holds him responsible, so there's definitely everything, and I can't thank you guys all enough, it was just.
Mrs. Small, I don't know if I ever used your name, but this is Samantha Small.
Yes. Alright guys, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Patience,
I'd like to hear
yes, the good stuff.
I wanna go home now.
Yeah, we're done. That was like the cherry on top of the sundae. We don't need to do
I wanna
anything
go
else.
to trade
Right?
school.
Yeah, Right.
There's so many hard things here, it is so amazing when there's positive things
and there's a
it's
yes,
a ripple effect.
and there's a yes.
Well, I raised boys and some of them went to school, like you said, our mission is to send them to college. But my last one was, he was no way gonna go to college, he had offers, scholarships and everything. But he was just gonna work and he wanted to be an electrician. And that's one reason why I ran, was a different view as exactly those, a CTE program, so where we can have kids ready to, start them in 9th grade.
Yes.
Get them going, get the core stuff, and then get them off to work a year after they graduate.
Absolutely.
It is good, I like to hear successful stories like
It's
that.
amazing,
Thank you guys.
absolutely amazing. No, she was a presentation. Oh, are there
No, she's
citizens
a-
to address the
no,
board?
I thought she
No.
was a citizen.
She was
I was like, that was a
she is a
citizen
citizen. She's a very special citizen. She was a
Take the 3 minutes.
right? I forgot to time you. No, just kidding.
So I literally was like,
That was-
and he knows I was gonna ask.
Perfect. Tell him it was perfect. Oh, okay, so now that concluded recognitions.
That concluded recognitions,
Perfect.
and I do not believe we have any citizens to address the board.
Involve any citizens?
No, ma'am.
All right, no citizens to address the board. Presentations, Mr. Widener.
We are excited for presentations tonight, with tomorrow being our first day of instruction, starting on our new calendar year. I have asked Dr. Martin and our instructional coach team to come and visit with us about what's going on in PLCs this year. What do DLPs look like? What kind of collaboration are we doing amongst teams, amongst campuses? And so it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Mindy Thayer and Miss Amy Cameron to present to you about PLCs, DLPs, and collaboration.
So I am Mindy Thayer, I am the instructional coach at Mount Elementary, and I'm gonna talk to you about the DLP. So I'm sure you guys know, this is our district learning plan, and at the beginning of the summer, the coaches did get together to give it a little bit of an upgrade, which has gone really well with our teachers, they like the upgrades we gave it. We added lots of things to it. We added, before on our ELA, we were missing a few things, we were missing the writing components, we were missing the speaking components. Those things were just not in the DLP, even though teachers had to address those things in their classrooms, they weren't in the DLP for them to have. So we added those things in, not only on our pages, like where the teachers can quickly at a glance see what they need to work on that quarter, but we also went through and gave them lovely instructional scope. And I put a few copies out for you guys that way you can follow along. They're different grade levels, but they all have
The same
in
flow.
So we did add these for all the standards for ELA and math. And let me go back, each grade level has both subjects within their DLP. They used to be separate before, there was an ELA DLP, there was a math DLP, we put them all together. Because before it was kind of, we would give just the math teachers at elementary anyway, just the math. And it was like they're teaching word problems, like they should know how to support the ELA teacher. Our science and social studies teachers should be able to support math and reading also. So everything is in one book now, which the teachers were talking about yesterday. Again, we added lots of stuff from the PED, the instructional scopes. You can go through and see. It just gives a better description about the standard, better ways for teachers if they're confused, especially with math, to get clarification about what exactly that standard is and how to address it with students if you're having struggles with students, just different support for our teachers. We also, within the math DLP, went through, we did have in the past some concerns from teachers when certain standards were taught. So we went through and addressed that this year and made some adjustments to follow, just a little bit better of a flow. We had some things that were kind of taught at the end that needed to be at the beginning, things that were at the beginning that really should have been pushed towards the end. So we made lots of adjustment with those things. And we also, after the coaches went through, gave it a little bit of a facelift, teachers came in for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. We had all the way from kindergarten to high school, teachers had the opportunity to come in and do what we had done, give their input, which was huge because in the past that was things that teachers didn't have. They didn't have the chance to voice things that they wanted in the DLP, changes they wanted in the DLP. So this year, they were given that opportunity and their concerns were put into consideration and changes were made in the DLP. So it was nice yesterday. I know at my staff and the teachers that had come and participated, they were happy to see that their voices were heard and those changes were made. So it makes it easier for them and they're planning their lessons and they're delivering their curriculum that they know this is something they can follow and it's something that their voices were heard and it's not, I really didn't want to teach that there, I wish it was here, they can open this now and know I can do this. So this is kind of their Bible. They have this when they're making their lessons, and like I said, it's now a one-stop shop. They can get their DLP. They don't have to get on the PED website. They don't have to get on other websites. We kind of gave them everything they need
No date,
right here.
and we didn't put a date because it's something that might stay for, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it's a live document. As teachers, you know what? We can think about this. We can put that in there. We can make those adjustments. In the past too, I know, teachers always wanted it to be something digital. Not something that could be edited, but just a PDF. When you're at home doing your lesson plans, you don't always remember to take this with you. That was huge with my staff. When we said that they were in the drive, it was like Merry Christmas. Yeah. They were so happy. It was like, we can look at it at home, or I don't have to, remember that in my bag or worry that I'm gonna ruin it in my bag, it's just paper. But I know my elementary teachers were so happy that it was something that they could digitally open and have at their fingertips when making their lesson plans. But yes, like Dr. Martin said, that's another big thing, that we're here to listen. We have our PLCs to our teachers and know adjustments that can be made and anything we can do to make it better so that they can better serve our students.
And if I can talk just for a minute, in the past, it was kindergarten through 6th grade, ELA in one binder, and then it was kindergarten through 6th grade in the math separate binder. And there are some benefits to that as well, because you can see standards that are being taught before you and standards that are being taught after you, but that's where the digital component comes in. So then they can go there and look at it and go through it from there. So this is just what they need for their grade level.
So before we would give them a book this big, but only this much applied to them. So now, it's
Now that all
yes,
is.
it's a little more intimidating. But like I said, we did add just so many pages of those instructional scopes, and with the math especially, there's even assessment pages that give teachers ideas, activity themes that they can take to their planning into their classroom to do a better job at serving their students.
And MLSS.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a big thing.
Dr. Martin, how many DLPs are there? And board members, that stands for district learning plans. This is their scope and sequence and standards, and it's all tied together. So how many are there, Dr. Martin?
We, our teachers and instructional coaches, went through all the elementary math and ELA DLPs. Our secondary teachers went through all the science and math and social studies DLPs. And those are basically what they went over.
So 14, more or less about 30 plus DLPs.
I was thinking there was probably more than 25
Yes.
in there.
Because at the elementary up to 8th grade have, by grade level, and in high school they have like the algebra, they have the more focused for those topics.
You guys did an amazing job editing, making those user friendly and getting the teacher input.
Just the beautifulness of the heading pages, all those things are just appreciated by teachers when they see it, it looks nice, you know, it's, if you're a teacher, you know those things. You like to see something. Yes.
Well, like you said, it's like a Bible, it feels
You
like.
everything to match. So just all those
It
little
feels
pieces
like it's got-
teachers really appreciate.
Important.
And then
Exactly.
during our PLCs is where we meet with our teachers to discuss our DLPs, to discuss planning, to discuss issues that they're having, and Amy is gonna talk to you guys about this.
Okay, so before I go any further, being an instructional coach is just so much more than DLP and PLC. So those are very two important facets, but there's a lot that goes into your PLC. So from your DLP, the teachers are supposed to be teaching and instructing. Then you give the IMASA test, which is the interim test for the end of the year. So everybody in the district gives that test at the beginning of the year. From there, instructional coaches in their PLC will take that data and share it with their teachers in their PLC as they scored 3rd through 6th. We highlight the standards that were common across grade levels. We then do a standard study so that they understand the verbiage and how they progress from one standard at one grade level to the next. We give them instructional tools, we give them suggestions, we help them plan for interventions according to the strategic plan that the district has given us. So if they score below that district strategic plan percentage that's decided amongst you guys, then that's the ones that we hone on in. And I call it my war room. So what's really cool about that is I have a war room and I have my standards put up. And so at the beginning of the year, there's a lot, so it's very daunting. And the middle of the year comes around and the same test is given. And what's really powerful is I let the teachers go up and cross off the standards that they've met, because the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year is the same exam. So you can work through and analyzing the standard and working towards the end to mastering it. So through your PLCs and collaboration amongst grade levels, you can actually hone in on those ones and give some really decent interventions and feedback to the teachers, okay? That's one thing we do. Another thing is we talk to new teachers about how that works, clarifying any kind of standard that they have a misconception of or what it looks like. Through that, we bring in student work. We don't do it every PLC. We meet once a week per grade level, and we have a plan, like we're gonna do standards on this time. This time, we're gonna talk about examining student work. So what did you do from the standard that we talked about that needed intervening? What did you do in your classroom? Bring that student work and let's see how it looks and how it goes to the standard, okay? And let's see if that's the outcome that's
standard stating, okay? We are also the resource clarifier, finder, distributor. So we do all of that as far as resources are concerned. We coach them through planning their lessons. We observe them. We don't evaluate them. We go into their classrooms, they invite us in, we observe them to give them suggestions, basically, on instructional delivery. Never, ever us coming across like we're the mastermind, you know? We want them to feel coached. We don't want them to feel like you need to do it this way. So we wanna coach them. We're their motivator, we're their supporter, we're their cheerleader, we're their buffer sometimes with parents. I mean, anytime that they need us, we're there, okay? And programs. Any kind of the programs that are, especially for new teachers, they don't know what programs are or what we're doing and what it's used for. So we have to really talk about programs, testing schedules, things like that. Grading, oh, that's a big one. Synergy is a big one. But mostly, I like to focus on a growth mindset, a positive growth mindset situation. And if you could appease me for just 2 seconds, I will let you feel like you're part of one of my PLCs, okay? So, each grade level will come in and I took this from our PD that we had yesterday. So that's another thing that we do. The PD that's offered by the school. We want to make sure that our teachers understand the vision that they're trying to bring, okay? Yesterday, we had a phenomenal speaker, and thank you so much for bringing him in. And so it's the power of language. So if you could take one of these and pass it down. And this is just my little spiel off of what the PD development was yesterday, okay? His whole spiel was, if you change your language, you change your expectation, okay? So, once you get your paper, I would give this to my teachers. And I would have them read it the way you see it. So we read from left to right. So go ahead and read those bullets to yourself and pay attention to how you feel as you read it. What are you feeling? Is there any kind of negative thoughts in what you're feeling? Is it starting with something that can't be fixed, or is it starting with I'm pointing the finger, or is it starting positive? So think about that as you read them. How'd you feel? Yeah, it's very negative, very negative, okay? And some of us, you know, if we come across as evaluators or even as people who are helping them be better people, if we say, hey man, you don't have any ambition, you're lazy. I mean, that's not very positive to get across. Now I am going to invite you to read it backwards.
Yes. Amazing.
How does it change?
It changes everything.
It does. It changes your whole feeling about who you are, it changes what I can do as an individual. It changes, okay, I might be lazy, but you know what, maybe I can change it with ambition. I can really do something good. If I have a dream, it's gonna squash my fear right away, you know? So just to reiterate on the PD that he brought in, this is what I'm going to do, my very first PLC with my instructors. Because if I don't take care of my instructors, and if we don't take care of our instructors mentally, positively, then how are they going to be able to do that for our students? So it starts with us. And that's the vision that our superintendent has and the board I'm sure has. And that's what we're gonna do. So make this day great. So I hope it was great for you.
It is.
Yes,
It
thank
will
you.
be.
And we do definitely have to be there to remind our teachers, because they are the ones in the rooms with those little bodies, and we have to be their support and remind them of the positive and bring them back, pull them back, and have them leave our PLCs. I can do it, I can keep going.
It's all about trust.
Yes.
They've gotta trust us that we got their back. And it takes a minute to build that, but once you have it, you will succeed.
Well, when I
Thank
first ran
you.
for office,
Questions first and then statements. Questions?
When
Statements.
we went to a training and they're talking about, talking about you guys, but I know what they were talking about. And they're saying, you know, when you hire somebody new, they say, here's the keys. This is your classroom, and then they walk away and these teachers are like, well, I don't even have a, you know, what do I do? What do I do for discipline? You know, new curriculum. And then, you know, I found out, so then I came back, I said, do we have those at our school? And we, you know, I found out that's what you guys did. But they're really pushing them, cause they want, we're talking, it was in New Orleans. They're talking about, you know, we've gotta start getting, we wanna send them to school, but we need to start hiring them. But we need to hire them with somebody that's gonna coach them, you know, make them feel like they're ready to start, you know, cause they need a mentor, and they pretty much consider you guys mentors to these these new graduates that are coming in, filling in the spots. And it just helps your school look better when you're actually helping them through it.
I know for me, we have a few new teachers and we started work last week and they were there working on their classrooms. Every day I'd go in, nothing up, just little, do you need staples, do you need building? And you know, as we got there yesterday and today, it was like, you show up with more things and more, but they need that, they need the support of how to make their classroom welcoming, how all of those things before we come at them with the big stuff. But there today, we're already ready, like, okay, I'm ready, like, we have that bond with them and they know that we're here as their number one cheerleader.
I think it's rewarding for us sitting here right now to know that you took something so positive away from yesterday to, that can help us go forward and excite our educators and help our children, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We're here for
And
the
you
kids.
know, I don't know if you've ever been in the trenches before or watched teachers, but they are their worst
Yes.
critics. And they bring
Yes.
they bring themselves down.
Oh,
And so you
100%.
constantly have to focus on the positive and help
Yes,
with some of the things they struggle with.
yes. Well,
So.
we thank you all for what you're doing to help our teachers, help our children. So thank you very much. Anything else, board members?
I have questions. Of myself. In other words, I'm gonna take this and learn a bit more about it. So that's where the questions lie. I don't have particular questions for you, but I see that the materials are in here, the sources. There are a lot of sources out there that you can
Digital, so that he can have all of it.
teachers, but thank you, appreciate the presentation. And look forward to seeing the work that's in.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Guile, I will ask Dr. Martin to share the digital files with you, so if you wanna know about geometry and all the fun stuff.
I prefer to see live in action, things like that.
That was
Like you guys
amazing.
did, you know, you go to the
Yes.
stuff. That would be great.
Yes, thank you ladies so much.
I wanna brag on you guys for a minute, because you guys just did a great presentation. Our instructional coaches are phenomenal, and they really are a force out on the campuses. They are there, they're supporting new teachers, they're supporting seasoned teachers, and we have a lot of non-traditional teachers, and they really are representing us out in the district, in the communities, and truly are champions for our educators. And I'm so proud of all the work that Miss Cameron, you made my heart grow a while ago. I'm glad you took something away. And I'll tell a story about what we did today in a little bit, but you guys are amazing, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. I apologize for texting. I'm trying to let Miss Gallegos know. So I felt badly that I was my head down for a moment. You all were wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, there's a.
everybody here, we're going to have Miss Elena Gallegos join us via Zoom this evening. That was not our original plan, but she had some vehicle trouble on the way over, and I encouraged her to take. What happened?
President Lee,
Yes, ma'am.
I just realized that I may have accidentally hit a recording button.
Okay.
So I just stopped it. I'm assuming if I stopped it, it must have been something I inadvertently started. So I'll delete it. You all have your recording devices still going?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then I'm just gonna, leave this stop. I guess you just let me know.
Okay, I believe we're okay. Mr. Jones, are we okay? As far as you could tell? Wonderful. All right, so Ms. Gallegos is on with us for our Policy Services Advisory second read for the policies 238 through 245. So Ms. Gallegos, I will turn this over to you, ma'am.
All right, thank you, President Lee, members of the board. Superintendent, I apologize, I may not end up addressing you all by name because I can barely see who all is on the screen. But it's a pleasure to be here, at least virtually tonight. I got about 30 minutes down on I-40 West and my car was not operating properly. So I'm glad to at least be safe and sound and have alternative way to present to you tonight. Thank you for your understanding of that. So as President Lee just indicated, last board meeting at which I attended, you all did 238, 239. Well, it was 238 through 245. Not all of them did you ask me to make changes to. So we could start with the ones that you asked me to make changes to, and then go back to any of the others that you'd like to have further discussion on is my suggestion, unless you want to approach it a different way.
Board members, I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense, Ms. Gallegos.
Then I'm hoping, I did send to all board members the changes that I made immediately following having made those changes, which was a day or two after the board meeting that I attended. So I'm assuming that everyone has them at least, if not via my email, at least in the packets in front of you. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, and if at any point it makes sense for me to share my screen, I can do that, but I think it might be easier for everyone to just look at their packets. So I know these aren't page numbered, but the first policy that you advised me to make further changes on based on discussion was advisory 242. And if you look at the lettering system for it, it's policy BEDBA. So advisory 242, policy BED, as in dog, EA. And if you, I'll give you a few minutes to find that page. It's rather far into it. I believe it's policy. Presently, I'll let you tell me when everyone's ready.
Dr. Guy is ready. 42. We're almost there. This one. Okay, yes, ma'am, we're ready.
Okay, so this is agenda preparation and dissemination. And let me see what specifically you all wanted me to address on that. We had talked about adding a sentence on the annual calendar. Okay, so the first thing we looked at, let me just start from top to bottom.
in terms of the last board meeting, you'll notice that the first change under the heading regular meeting, second paragraph, it says the superintendent or board members may place items on the agenda, and you all had talked about having me add within legal and policy limits. So that's been added since the last board meeting. And then we talked about the next paragraph, we talked about the whole issue of the board packets. And originally I had simply added the language about whenever 72 hours prior to the meeting, whenever feasible. And we talked about that being too open. And so you suggested I added an item making it clear that it could be tabled if the materials were so dense and the 72-hour timeline wasn't met. And so I added the sentence, any board member may not or may move to table an item if the supporting materials were not provided to the board at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting and are too voluminous to digest within the time provided.
Lorraine, I don't think this is the right copy printed. I think this is the original copy, not the modified copy. So Ms. Gallegos, we're looking at what I think was actually in from the previous meeting and did not have the changes that you sent us.
Okay, then I can share my screen.
That would be very helpful at this time.
Okay, but just, I did send an email to every single board member, to the superintendent and to Lorraine, all in one email. So as far as the board, having seen it, you all did get it early. Sorry that it didn't make it into the packet. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So
yes, ma'am, you did send that on July 30th.
Okay, thanks. I couldn't remember the exact date. So where we were, don't let me make you dizzy. And I did, by the way, highlight any changes you had me make beyond the second meeting. Okay, here's where we were. So I just noticed too, that actually the first change you had me made to this policy is the one you see in yellow. And it had to do with annual planning. You all remember we had that conversation about a master calendar, which I thought was an excellent suggestion that was made by the board members. And so what I added is at the beginning of each fiscal year, the superintendent will prepare and present to the board a master calendar that contemplates board actions and when they must occur during the fiscal year to aid the agenda setting process for discussion and input in an open board meeting. The following types of items shall be included in the master calendar. And I just pulled those examples from what is sort of what the board is legally obligated to do. And I put them in the order that they arise in a calendar process. So elect officers, approve budget, adopt calendar, by calendar meaning school calendar, engage in collective bargaining strategy discussions, conduct superintendent evaluation, adopt the OMA resolution. Now, those are just examples of what by this annual planning paragraph, the board would be expecting the superintendent to do, and that's plug it into a master calendar. When that master calendar comes before the board, there may be other things where the board might say, well, don't we typically do such and such in October? Oh, yes, then let's add that to the October calendar. And I think the idea, and I think it was you, Dr. Guy, that raised it, but the idea is that it helps give people a schema for when we typically talk about things, so that when they're looking at suggestions for the agenda, they kind of, all board members kind of know what the scope and sequence is for things.
Dr. Archambault had a question to ask you on this one, Ms. Gallegos.
Board members, do you have that?
Yes,
gonna print it now.
she's gonna print it. I do have it.
Let me suggest just
Um,
adding a couple of
Mrs.
words.
Lee, she sent it to Lorraine Vio, not to me.
Oh, so Ms. Gallegos, apparently you inadvertently sent it to Lorraine V. Hill instead of Sandoval.
Oh, I
So
am
Miss Lorraine,
Sorry,
That's okay.
well, and I didn't catch that either.
Mr.
I apologize. Okay,
Those who have the first name of Lorraine to change their names. So we don't have
Yes.
one person.
Yes. You can put-
Everybody else, we're gonna recommend changing their name so that there's only one Lorraine. That's what Guy said, no.
I agree with the suggestion.
Guy, what was your,
Well, we'll prepare for the board's review
I can
and
see
present to
too.
to the board. Present for the board's review and approval a master calendar.
Yeah, okay, I can do that for review and approval.
Will prepare and present to the board for its review and approval.
Okay, if you'll just give me a second.
Because that gives us the option of doing some work with Mr. Whiteman about the actual final,
Agenda.
what we're gonna include in the calendar. So that you don't feel that you have to be the one who comes up with everything. That you'll come up with those things and let's discuss.
I'm barely hearing, I apologize.
Well, okay, I'm just suggesting that Superintendent Widener would then present an initial draft of what would be the calendar, and then we would all sit here and brainstorm and review. And if anybody, and if your administration has some thoughts about what else needs to be put on there, then we would not feel that you have to be the one who has to do everything, that we can work it out together in a meeting and finalize it and then approve it.
Right.
Correct.
Well,
That's all.
I think
We
I
had a
think by
really
adding for it review and
good
approval,
calendar.
that accomplishes that goal.
So do you see on the screen, Dr. Guy, she's asking if she were to put
Do you see that?
for the review and approval.
For its review and approval.
Comma. English teacher. Yes, it's good.
That was great, right?
Know what she can do.
She can do that editing immediately. That was beautiful.
Well, my goal is, because tonight you can adopt this, and so what I'm gonna do, unless you guys get weary of the process, is I'll just make the changes so you can see it, so that if you move to approve on second meeting, you would be doing it with the changes as discussed in open session.
Wonderful.
So if you were, for example, to vote tonight to approve BEDBA, the motion would be, I move to approve revised BEDBA with the changes made in open session.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so any other comments?
No,
Okay.
no, ma'am.
All right, I think that covered all you asked me to do with this policy, because I'm not seeing any more highlights. Well, let me take you to, I believe it's the next policy. That would be advisory 243. So if you'll just kindly flip. And the only change we discussed is, well, first of all, there was a question raised about this language about honor before the 10th day of each month. The superintendent shall prepare a summary about where that came from. And I wasn't 100% sure, so I was glad to have the opportunity to go back and check state law. And that entire paragraph tracks state law verbatim. So, so I left that paragraph intact, because it tracks it verbatim, but I added the discussion that you all had, that's highlighted now. So this is the new language since the last board meeting, where it says the superintendent's office shall maintain for each fiscal year a running searchable log of each motion placed before the board and whether the motion passed or failed. Such log shall be available and accessible to the public on the district's website. So the idea, and if you want, I even thought you may want it searchable as a single document for 5 years, but I'm assuming that every year would stay online. And so we would have 2024 there. And then 2025 would be the next year. It might be a separate document, but you would still have 2024 and then you'd have 2025. But if you all think that it should be searchable, like a single document that captures 10 years, we can do that however you want. I was trying to capture the spirit of what you wanted, but I stand ready to make any changes that you all suggest.
I think I'm fine with this as well, Mr. Jaramillo.
Yes.
I think we're all fine with that, Ms. Gallegos.
Okay, and then the other thing you all asked me to do is look up the codified site rather than the reference to SB 137. And so I did, and you can see I highlighted that I added that. So that takes care of that advisory. The next one was a harder one because, you know, I definitely felt like I understood your feedback on what to do with this whole streaming and the dividing up the public comment within a board meeting that follows your existing guidelines that it's very clear you all feel comfortable with. And then also make sure that the district is complying with Senate Bill 137. And we kind of talked about it as two different concepts: public comment within a board meeting and the law where the courts have recognized, the 10th Circuit has recognized that there are other opportunities for input. So I ended up expanding the title to say other opportunity for input. So now read public participation at board meetings / other opportunity for input. And then I kept all of your rules for public comment, but I explained that these are the rules for at the board meeting at which public comment is included as an agenda, as an item on the agenda. For example, you might have a board retreat where you don't have public comment on the agenda. And so I wanted to make it clear that it's still, you're not mandated to do public comment within the board meeting. And then I broke apart NMSBA's summary of Senate Bill 137, and I added some language. So let's walk through this. The board, so this is all added language. Everything highlighted in yellow is new. It was what I added based on your input. So the board further establishes the following procedures for citizens of the district to give input while observing board meetings. Now, this is just give input in terms of entering input. And again, as we discussed, because all of you felt really strongly that it should not be permitted to interfere with the meeting. You also described, I believe it was Vice President Jaramillo that described how the city does it. And so I think I had a fairly good concept of what you all had in mind. And so what we're talking about is meetings, video webcasts of meetings that are accessible through the district website that just tracks 137. The webcast shall include a user interface that allows members of the public to submit written or verbal comments. Superintendent may develop regulations. Again, those things that are in black underline is what NMSBA had written. What I did is expanded it based on your input. So the new bullets are such regulations, meaning the ones that the superintendent will do, or procedures. They include limits on the length of comments through features such as character limits. So I did get online and tried to get a sense of things like YouTube, whether you could limit the comments on YouTube by character. And it appears, and again, I'm not an IT expert, so at some point, obviously, you're gonna need an IT person to tell us, yes, we have it. For all I know, it's happening right now. I can't see it. But if you use a platform that allows character limits, then you're giving the superintendent permission to institute character limits. I added this other paragraph, if through regulation or procedure, the user interface contains a microphone access feature. Verbal comments shall be allowed through the microphone access feature and shall contain the same length limits, if any, as written comments. So remember that, and I can put up 137 if you need me to. I've got it plugged in and ready to go here. But
Dr. Archambault has a question about this right now.
The bullet that says if through regulation or procedure, the user interface contains a microphone, that paragraph I'd like to talk about.
is that what you want to ask me about?
I want to discuss that.
Okay, go ahead.
The last line, well, not the last line, the last two lines.
Okay,
And shall contain the same length limits, if any, as written comments. It's my understanding the rationale for the time limits previous to this year was to ensure that the open meeting session would not be unreasonably extended due to someone's lengthy comments. And so the districts have had policies limiting the amount of time. That was related to being more efficient in the boardroom and not taking up as much time. Well, I don't know how that applies to let me make sure I'm clear on this. This was for those who are going to make comment other than open session.
right, yeah, and I'm happy to address that. I understand what you're saying. So first of all, the time limitation that you have in existing policy on the time limitations that boards set, it's not statutory, it's a constitutional principle. And what the Supreme Court and 10th Circuit have said is that a public body, if they allow public comment at any time, they can put time, place, and manner restrictions on it. And so the time limit is a time, place, and manner restriction. You can't restrict viewpoint, but you can restrict time, place, and manner. And I was trying to capture the consent. It doesn't have to be the same limit. So if right now you have 3 minutes, you're right, Dr. Archambault, in terms of these are different things, and how you describe it is accurate. And so I agree that your time, place, and manner restriction should look at what purpose are we trying to serve here? And so I wouldn't think that it would be identical to the section above, where 3 minutes, therefore, how many characters equals, 3 minutes. I'm not saying that. I'm just a little worried because people talk about the abuses on YouTube of like a rant that might go on for pages and pages. And if the goal is that once this document is generated, if the goal is an expectation is that the board members are going to review all of this, and that's going to help potentially drive next steps, including possibly future agendas. I was a little concerned about, because we can't place limit based on viewpoints. So if I'm one of those people that just jumps on any public site and decides to talk about how, I hate government and government officials and I don't trust anybody, and I don't really even believe in the US Constitution, and I just want to rant for pages and pages and pages, it could become a distraction to the purpose of this. And so most people can make their point within a reasonable number of characters or in a reasonable amount of time. And the idea is to convey that point so that the board can say, oh, we want to put this on a future agenda. Or we'd like the superintendent to investigate and follow up. Or we'd like to let that person know that this other policy is available if they want to, raise it through the policy process. So I was just trying to allow space to let you all experiment with some time, place, manner restrictions which are permitted under the US Constitution, so that you didn't end up with some kind of sideshow that was just not appropriate to its purpose.
So Dr. Guy,
I'm fine with it as it is.
I do think, though, I agree with Dr. Guy. I think that, and so I'll say this to Superintendent Widener, that I think that you should not try and match the equivalent of 3 minutes, because I do agree that the context is different. And so your time, place, manner restriction needs to contemplate the context. And board members, what I would say to you is if it's overly restrictive or not restrictive enough, as these things start coming to you for review, you may say, okay, our character limit is too restrictive, or our character limit is not restrictive enough, and we're having to wade through pages of ranting. And then give that feedback so it can be adjusted, because this is all brand new.
right. Dr. Guy,
I still feel comfortable with what she has.
I
Okay.
agree.
And even at the same length limits, because why don't we try it out first year?
Absolutely.
And Ms. Wider can, Superintendent Wider can advise us to how it plays out. As you can tell, we have a groundswell, we have numerous people signing up for this. Every time we have a meeting.
Mr. Jaramillo, are you all right with how
oh, yeah.
that's
Go
written?
ahead.
I apologize for
Okay.
taking up the time, I just wanted to,
Clarify.
Well, and stuff needs to be updated.
I just needed to understand and have us understand that it's something that we have, that is, it is allowable for us to determine. And I guess we should try to do our best in getting community members to participate. This might be one avenue, but we don't want it to get to be, something we'd be looking at for 6 hours every night. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gallegos.
Yeah, and President Lee, if I may just add to, I heard what Dr. Archambault just said, and I just want to emphasize, it helps me to hear comments, because then it tells me that then I can reinforce when I think we're all saying the same thing. And this is news, so I wish you wouldn't apologize, and I appreciate your comments, because that reinforced to me that that you all are seeing it the same way I am, and that we're all on the same page, which is obviously the goal right now, policy. So to go on to the next bullet, I put comments submitted through this alternative channel of communication, and again, I'm using that phrase because it tracks a 10th Circuit phrase. And then the rest of it is also to track what I thought was your sentiment. Shall not disrupt the meeting by being visible for reading during the meeting, but instead should be made accessible to the board following the board meeting. And then all I did for the next bullet is that's the one bullet that matches verbatim what you have here about personal attacks. But you'll notice, and I want to emphasize this just because I'm in front of you and I'm a lawyer advising you, is that in this language here, it says are discouraged. It does not say personal attacks are prohibited. And in fact, you can't prohibit personal attacks on the superintendent. You cannot prohibit personal attacks on board members, because that's viewpoint specific. If you were to prohibit personal attacks on staff, you would also have to prohibit praise of staff. You can't just prohibit one viewpoint and not the other viewpoint. And so it's very hard to prohibit even personal attacks on staff. So I wanted you to know that I agree with MMSBA's paragraph right here. I think some people think that it's a prohibition. It's not. It's a statement of discouragement. And I think that from a constitutional standpoint, the that's a solid standard that's being articulated, and so I simply carried it forward, re-articulated it for this segment as well.
Dr. Archambeau.
Ms. Gallegos, would you operationalize the word discouraged?
Well, I mean, again, I want to emphasize that, first of all, that's NMSBA's language. You already have it up here. It's the one you've been living with. It is just a request that people be civil, but if they're not, you can't delete posts if it's a post under this section. You can't stop a speaker if it's during public comment. You can't, because that's viewpoint. What it goes on to say is that that a person is responsible for what they say, the presenter is responsible, and that they may be subject to civil action for defamation. So it's not that it's okay to defame someone else. It's just that in a public meeting, that's not where we can vet those comments constitutionally without ending up in a constitutional dilemma. So it's not to say that the person uttering those comments might not end up with civil liability, but we can't, we have to be viewpoint neutral in our restrictions.
Dr. Archambeau.
I'm trying to recollect in our history of this board whether we've had caustic remarks made or difficult remarks made by members of the public
Yes,
in the meetings.
yes. 2020.
I was under their assumption, I inferred from our own policy, which is on the public comment policy.
That's where we are.
Is it there?
Yeah, it's right here. That's what I was reading from. That is this policy. And this is the language you already had. It's not changed.
So that means that that there still is a potential.
That's right, sir.
But we can cut them off after 3 minutes.
No, you can't.
After 3 minutes, he said.
Well, yes, absolutely. But what's important is you can't cut that person off after 3 minutes unless you cut everybody off at 3 minutes. And so that's what's hard in these meetings. And one thing, and this has actually been a subject of a New Mexico federal court decision. One of the New Mexico school districts. And so I really think it's important for boards to understand why, even when someone may be praising the board, this is the best board ever, you all walk on water, no matter how much you're enjoying hearing the comment, you have to stop it at 3 minutes. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a constitutional bind if you stop the person who has negative things to say or viewpoints that the board disagrees with. But you don't stop the person who's saying things that the board agrees with. And that's why I believe that it was board member Hunt last time that brought up, can we recognize dignitaries, for example? Absolutely, but what we should do is embed them in the agenda and not have them, they would have to follow the same rules if they're speaking under public comment. But if we know we need the voice of a dignitary, if we invite a dignitary, we should build them into the agenda.
Did that clarify, Dr. Archambeau?
I guess number one, we just hope that we have
Courteous.
a bit more civil discourse in the future, and I think we probably would, and making sure that they understand that all the, when we read these things up and when we have them in the website, that this is how you should conduct yourself when you're going to talk, and just be aware that we frown on those things. It's harmful to the community if just have to work with this for a while. Thank you.
Well, I agree with what you just said. I do have one board that they put up right before public comment. Lack of a better word, I don't remember what they call it, but basically an etiquette statement, like kind of rules of etiquette. It's clear that again, encouraging people as opposed to saying we'll cut you off. But it does list kind of the behavior the civil behavior that we expect of people when they're voicing their views. And I think there is a way to say it where it's encouraging people without getting into restrictions of free speech. And so I would be happy, Superintendent, if you want to shoot me an email, or President Lee, if you want to shoot me an email to, I think permission to share that with you all, and you may want to tailor it to your preferences locally, but I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Okay, so I think that gets us through that one, and the one thing I want to emphasize is I think you're going to have to, Superintendent Lane, you're going to really need to work with your IT people. This law is already in effect, and there's not some kind of extension built in. So you're going to want to make sure that you're complying, and that if there's a challenge, especially a challenge vis-a-vis the policy, that get presented to the board right away. And I believe that is it, other than, of course, you can see on all of them, I've highlighted that I made that change to reflect the statute, but that's it as far as new from the last meeting. So I can now scroll through the old if anyone wants to have further discussion, or if you're comfortable with where we left those as of the last meeting, we can leave it at that. I'm gonna just wait for you to answer.
Dr. Archambault has one more thing. I believe he was wanting to point out to you, Ms. Gallegos.
Okay.
Elaine and Lorraine we have on our website a public comment request form.
Right.
Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. I'm familiar with those forms. I have not looked at yours, no.
I'll be glad to tell you what it says.
Okay.
Okay, the first portion of it is standard, where they put down their name and their, basic information about themselves and the topic that they want to discuss. And we have a lengthy notice that says explicitly about the board president terminating conversations. It says, public comment which unduly disrupts the orderly progress of any board meeting or is contrary to the decorum and order of the meeting, or the use of language in public comment containing personal abusive epithets toward another, which when addressed to the ordinary citizen or as matter of common knowledge inherently likely to provoke a violent reaction, will be terminated by the board president.
Right. Yeah, I don't. So the constitutional line, like those, that does generally track some court cases. Like I could show you the 10th Circuit court cases that tracks. The problem is the judgment involved.
Would you, board president and Mr. Widener and you discuss this and then come up with a solution for it?
So on Ms. Gallegos, on our board policies, that he is referring to our policy B-2181 BEDH-E.
Okay, so that's an exhibit. That's not a policy.
Correct.
It's an exhibit. So it would not have to go through 2 meetings to change an exhibit. We could look at that, and I'm happy to look at it and suggest changes. I'm assuming we have some, that the board is, well, let me say what my recommendation would be. I tend to prefer not to suggest that there's a higher level of authority to cut people off than there actually is. So like threats of bodily harm that a reasonable person would believe was a genuine threat that placed them in danger, that's not protected by the US Constitution. But like profanity, or I should say obscenities, pornography is not protected by the Constitution. But even like profanity, if you all remember, and I know you were referring to, I think you said 2020 in terms of criticism, where we saw a level of citizen dissatisfaction across the country, where people were wanting to express their views, was during the pandemic. And we had a wave of across the country issues having to do with, all right, if someone's really angry and uses curse words, what level is it cross the line? And I think that in the public school arena, our sensitivities tend to be higher than what we can reasonably restrict under the First Amendment. So I try to limit the suggestion that we can manage content readily based on just our own principles of etiquette. So I'm happy to look at that and tighten it up some more if that's what's being requested, but I don't think we need to do it. I don't think it will affect the policies you're looking at now. And I think it should come back before the board, but it won't need 2 meetings.
I think at a later time that makes perfect sense, because as I'm sitting here reading this, that sentence that Dr. Archambault brought up lists all of those things, but then at the very end says inherently likely to provoke a violent reaction will be terminated. So it doesn't actually, as I read it, state that you're stopping everything that someone is saying. So I think it would be wonderful to have you review that for us to make sure that we're, not doing something unconstitutional, if you will.
And I'll just say to all of you, I mean, the bottom line is being uncomfortable during public comment is okay. I mean, that's what open meetings and being public officials is about. And it's hard because in the classroom and, as educator role models, as public official role models, you have all adopted a certain set of decorum and code of conduct. But when people are exercising their First Amendment rights in the context of public comment, we have to give them wide latitude to express their views. And when a citizen is frustrated, they may express their views in ways that violate our sense of decorum, but we have to allow that. And so I think you all appreciate that, and I'm happy to look at it to make sure it doesn't mislead the board in terms of what kind of latitude it has.
Thank you very much. So I believe that we can proceed from where you were going through at the very beginning. You said you were gonna just highlight that. Thank you.
Yeah, that is it. So I think the question is, you want me to go page by page real quickly in case one of you wants to revisit what wasn't changed from the last meeting? Because we've hit now everything that was changed from the last meeting.
Board members, I'm comfortable with what has been presented. Do you all request a page by page?
No.
I went through it.
Ms. Gallegos, I believe that we are comfortable with what you have shared with us and what we went through at the last meeting. And you helped us see all of the changes that the board requested, so I don't believe we need a page by page at this time.
Okay, all right, well, with your permission, I will excuse myself from the meeting, and again, the motion would be to approve, the changes as, presented, and along with any other changes discussed in open session, and I think it was just the one. So the
I
one.
believe so.
Now I'm gonna make you busy. Ah, there it is. Oh, I don't have you on the screen, but the only one we made the change to was BEDBA.
We're not to the action.
As discussed in open session to BEDBA. So let me try this again. So the motion would be to approve the revised policies as presented for second reading with the additional change made to policy BEDBA in open session.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm sorry I wasn't there in person, that was my intent, but I'm glad that I could still make scenes. And again, always an honor to be in front of you.
We thank you so much for being here, and most importantly, we're glad that you are safe and that you are not stranded on the side of the road, so that's way more important. And we appreciate your time and your expertise this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Mr. Widener, I believe it is your time to shine with your superintendent's report.
President Lee, board members, it's my honor to tell you a little bit about yesterday. We brought all of the more than 500 employees of GCCS back together. We were ready to kick off our 2024-2025 school year. We definitely set a tone with our motto being GCCS as shifting gears in 24-25, meaning that we want to pull our students up. We want to go up. We want to climb. We had an excellent author speaker provide a workshop for more than 2 hours, and all of the board members got a copy of his book, The Liberty of Our Language Revealed. His name is Thomas Blackwell. Miss Cameron mentioned him a while ago and talked about some of the strategies that she's taken away. This morning in our ELT meeting, we selected one of the ELT directors, and we all celebrated them and showed gratitude for their purpose on the team, and I hope it made them feel good. We wanted Mrs. Grego to know that she was loved, and so it was a really good activity. I think we're gonna see a lot of this happening in our schools, where we're loving the good things that are happening. We're manifesting good in our school. We're caring for our children and really helping them to shift gears. We did show a promotional video that I would like to share with you.
Yes, please.
It's a few minutes and we'll make it public and it'll be on YouTube.
Well, I was talking to you. I was trying to say, trying to make sure I was safe, I was negative.
Right.
see it. I apologize, we're restarting it because we want the public to be able to view it. I noticed that it was not streaming for the public to be able to view. So we're gonna restart that, Mr. Widener.
Excellent.
So that the public is able to see it as well. That's the goal, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now it's showing it.
So that was our kickoff video and I wanna give you guys credit. Audibly, the staff, the people from different communities, they clapped when they saw their new school at Blue Water. They clapped when they saw the new school at Mesa View. They were excited about Physics in a Box. They were excited, and so there was a lot of excitement in the air yesterday and funny they didn't clap about the benefit thing, but they may not understand how that all works, but I know board, you have been the leaders on all of the innovations and so you guys deserve a lot of credit for that. And, we're excited. We're ready to start tomorrow.
Shifting gears.
We're gonna shift gears tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Widener. All right, I believe we are on now to a very brief recess that we had on the schedule. We did that thinking that we were having quite a lengthy policy review and other things going with presentations, but having removed a couple of things, we've moved a little bit quicker. But we will take a 5-minute recess for the board and our audience and directors to stretch their legs, if you will, and we will come back in 5 minutes. It is 7:19, so if everyone would be back at 7:24, that would be very helpful.
I think you need a motion for a recess, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I didn't think so if we had it on the agenda. I thought the recess was only if we
Well,
advice. Dr. Archambault.
it's in some districts, the board president is to declare their recess.
Perfect.
That was my
That's what she did.
understanding.
Perfect.
So Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Actually, I Googled this person.
He's pretty
And I watched
amazing.
that, so
He's pretty amazing.
Seemed to,
Yes.
seemed somebody.
I wanna introduce you to him.
And he
Dr.
actually
He's-
put stuff to,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in session after our 5-minute break. So I'll call us to order again, even though,
Back to concession.
so we are back to open session at 7, okay? So, Mr. Widener, is there a motion to reconvene open session?
I move that we come back to, or I recommend that you get a motion to come back to open session.
Wonderful. May I have a motion to come back to open
Yes,
session?
ma'am.
Yeah, I was making it, I
You
should,
were ready to be on the board.
I'm not a board member.
Hey now,
Move to return to open session.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So it has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to reconvene open session at 7:26 PM. Roll call vote, Mrs. Sandoval. I know
Dr.
it wasn't on
Archambault?
there. We're on here now.
Mr. Jaramillo,
yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Aye, motion carries, and we are back in session at 7:26 PM. We have action items, Mr. Widener.
Yes,
First action item B.
yes, action item B, as you have heard in various presentations on facilities, we have been getting price quotes, we've been looking to update the lighting at the Laguna Acoma softball field and baseball field, as well as the Grants High School softball field. And so we want to do the LED lighting. In the finance committee, we have talked about trying to keep the funds locally. And so you'll see on your action item sheet that there are 3 quotes. My recommendation is that we stay local, coming from the finance committee. And so I recommend that you approve a motion to spend $769,942 with Sourcewell and Mag Electric to install the lights at Laguna Acoma High School and Grants High School.
Thank you, Mr. Widener. Board members, may I please have a motion to approve the purchase and installation of new lighting installed at Grants High School softball field, Laguna Acoma High School softball field, and the Laguna Acoma baseball field in the amount of $769,942 by Mag Electric and what did you say the other? Sourcewell. I
Sourcewell.
apologize, I didn't read that right there.
I make the motion to approve the expenditure of $769,942 to Sourcewell and Mag Electric for the installation of new lighting systems for the Grants High School softball field, Laguna Acoma High School softball field, and Laguna Acoma High School baseball field.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Dr. Archambault to approve the purchase and installation of new lighting as listed, excuse me, in the amount of $769,942 by Sourcewell and Mag Electric. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambault.
Yes.
Mrs. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Aye, the motion carries. And now we will move on, Mr. Widener, to C.
And President Lee, you wrote the motion down, but I do recommend that you approve the revised policies as presented tonight.
In open session. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the Board Policy Services Advisory second read with the revised comments made in open session this evening
On policy BEDBA.
on BEDBA, the revised comments. Thank you, sir. I didn't read that far down on my page. Let me restate. Is there a motion to approve the Board Policy Services Advisory second read on policies 238 through 245, including the revised
Revisions.
the revisions made in open session in policy BEDBA?
I move.
Thank you.
As stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the Board Policy Services Advisory second read policies 238 through 245, including the revision made in open session to policy BEDBA. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. And now consent agenda. Mr. Widener.
You have in your packets the expenditure report for the month of July. I recommend that we approve the consent agenda items.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed, including the bills and expenditure report for July 2024?
Move that we approve the consent agenda as stated.
And is there a second?
Second.
Y'all are busy doing this tonight for me. Thank you. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the consent agenda as listed, including the bills and expenditure report for July 2024. Roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Announcements, Mr. Widener.
I have a few announcements. As you know, today was the teacher work day. We started our calendar yesterday, did professional development. Through our union contract, we give all teachers a day to work in their classrooms. So that was today. Tomorrow we will start classes, and any of you are welcome to join me at school. I'm doing secondary schools tomorrow. Last year I did elementary schools on opening day, so let me know, call me in the morning.
You can.
Okay.
I'll be at early college first thing.
Well, I will be, and then I will probably go from there to Laguna Acoma
Oh, exciting.
and then back to Lambs and Grants High School.
Wonderful.
So, let me know if you guys wanna join me. And so we'll start classes tomorrow. We'll have our pre-K students begin classes next Monday, the 12th. The registration for the National School Board Association Conference in Atlanta, it's in April. The registration opens on August 22nd. So if any of you would like to go to that conference, the four of us went last year to New Orleans. This one's in Atlanta. So
Really?
just,
That's early.
Did we go in April, or when did we go?
April, we
went in April, but the registration opens.
Starts in
No,
last
but I'm
year-
saying that was it.
It was
in
this,
April?
like the 6th through the 11th.
Well, I don't remember it opening up that so soon.
If any of you guys
Me
wanna
neither,
It
go,
seemed like it was more.
let Lorraine know and we'll start making travel
process.
plans.
Well, I think,
Perfect.
when they're there, they were already taking registrations
Yeah.
for the next year.
Could be.
The 28th, we will have professional development day. The students will be released early with us being accountable for a 180-day calendar. we don't have those full professional development days. So that's an early release day where we will have the PLC DLP collaborative work happening on that day. Also on August 28th, the district mentor, Bonnie Lightfoot, will be in the district, and she would like to get with the board and help with a work session, if that is agreeable with the board. And that is all of the announcements I have.
Future agenda items.
I have a few future agenda items from our last conversation. We talked about the facility master plan. We talked about the technology master plan, as well as in our work session, talking about that RFP for board legal representation. And from tonight, we did table the E-rate presentation, and we will have that at our next board meeting.
Wonderful. Anything further? Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation to adjourn?
We adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Widener. Board members, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to adjourn the meeting. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call please.
Dr. Archambault,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Aye, the motion carries and the board adjourned at 7:36 PM. It's a record.
Who was there?